So first of all, we'll go to pages and we'll look at how to edit page content. So first of all, if you just click on the home, well, the name of the page, or you could click on edit. And essentially what you get is this is the standard WordPress block editor. For pages, the only thing in here is the SEO, because everything else is controlled by Elementor, which is the page builder. So realistically, for all of these pages, the best way to get to them is just to hit edit with Elementor. And then that loads the editor. Okay. So this is obviously extra wide because I'm showing it you on my huge screen. I'll pull it down a bit. So that's roughly what it is. So on the left-hand side here, first of all, you've got elements, which are all of the little widgets that are available to you. And then under globals, you've got widgets that I've saved as global elements. For example, pink button. If you drag that in, you get a pink button coming in exactly as it needs to be. And you'd have to unlink to edit that. And I even have to unlink to delete it, actually. And there's tons of stuff here. So there's quotes, there's FAQs, and a lot of this, again, I'll be going through and tidying these up once we're finished. But for now, and for now, you don't really need to use them, but at least you know sort of what these all are. So ultimately, there'll be a ton of global elements in there that you can pull in should you need to do so. But for now, the main thing that you need to know is how to edit actual text when you're in here. So if you decide to change this headline, for example, you can just click in the box or click on the little pencil in the pink square on the corner, and you can change that in the text box up there. You can also write directly on top of the text, but I recommend avoiding that simply because when you paste directly into the sort of front engine part of it, it can bring in styles from Microsoft Word or wherever you're pasting from and create a bit of havoc. So it's easier just to paste. If you paste directly into that title box in the left column, it generally wipes the style for you. So in all of these widgets, you'll have 3 tabs. You've got content, which is what relates to the actual content. If this was a link, you'd add the link here. You've got style, which controls the color. All of your colors are saved in here for easy access. It controls your typography. Because this is natively using the H1 style typography, you don't need to change it. But for example, if you wanted this heading to be H1, but you want it to look like H2, you could change it there. But that's not what we want to do. So there's all sorts of stuff that you can do there. But most of it you don't really need to access because it will have been set up. And then advanced, this is things like if you wanted to change the margin, which is the space outside of the box, or the padding, which is the space inside the box. Dynamic visibility controls things like if you want this heading to show up on, so one really good example of this that I might use, say, for this column is I would use dynamic visibility, enable hide if condition met, and I'd say if mobile device, if it's a mobile device, hide that column, for example. But that's getting kind of into the nitty-gritty of the responsive stuff, but there's a bunch of things you can do with that dynamics should you need to. And another thing will be things like leadership lessons, which is sort of comes under early career, but also early investor. I'm creating the breadcrumb menus I'm doing for the programs. I'm going to add dynamic visibility to that so that if somebody comes from the early investor page, the breadcrumb looks like develop early investor instead of early career, just so that that sort of makes sense. So there's cool stuff you can do there. But for you, realistically, you're going to just need to click in the widget you need to change and be on the content box. And that's the same for all of this stuff. You can just edit it directly from in there. For images, click the pencil and you can choose an image from here should you want to change it. You can upload files just by dragging them on, or you can go to the media library and select something that already exists. Or, and this will be useful for blog posts, you can go to instant images and choose an image directly from Unsplash, which is free. So you could search for corporate office. And you'll get all sorts of images that could potentially be useful. Some of these other ones can also be good, but I find Unsplash generally has the best images for the free ones. So that'll really be good for blog posts where you're not wanting to pay for images every time, but it's quite an easy integration. Editing this stuff is all exactly the same. Editing these, again, it's just changing the text here. If you wanted to change a link, any link that's on the site will sort of come up when you start typing. So for this, for example, I'll type develop. All of your links with that page name come up and you can just click on the one that's correct. When you've made any changes on the page, click the pink update button right down the bottom. And that will update the page. If you try to exit the page before pressing that button, it will give you a warning saying, do you really want to leave? So you're unlikely to make changes and then lose them. For editing these are each an individual block, but basically you'd go through what does your ending number want to be. So if you decide it's actually 26 organizations, you could change that there to 26. And then the text is down here, this title segment. Now under partners, this is actually so similar to the global widgets that I showed you earlier. You can't make a section a global widget because it's not a widget, it's more than a widget, it's a section. So this, for example, could be a global widget, and potentially I should maybe change the way that's done so it is just a global widget. But you could also have a section, which is what that is, that can just be dragged into as a whole template. And anytime that template, if it's used in that way, you update it just under templates and then it'll update everywhere on the site. So for all of these sorts of blocks with the logos, both for here and also the skinny one at the bottom of the page, if you update those, you're updating them only in one spot and that'll universally change. So you don't have to go to every page and freak out about having missed one. This is the testimonial carousel.
I think that's the old Munro Partners logo. So Mel, if you can send across or change that one, just while I see it.
Cool. Some of them I had a few for in the folder, so it might be that I have it, I just didn't know which one to use. So maybe if there are any changes, yeah, just confirm. So for these, this is basically a slide because obviously it's rotating. So item 1, that's the text. That's the name. Item 2, and so forth. So if you wanted to add more testimonials to this carousel, and I don't think you really do because 3 is probably enough. No one's going to hover for long enough. But the easiest way to do it would just be to duplicate what's already there and then type over it. Now, featured content, obviously this is just a title, so you can change that easily. This is actually a content listing. Now, I know there've been some changes to the way the content's going to come in, so I need to adjust some of these queries, but basically all of these things are controlled by the queries. So if anything's not displaying the way you want it to, maybe on the front end page, just leave a comment, and I can adjust that. These YouTube widgets are really simple. You literally just put the link in there. And that'll be the link that you get out of YouTube. So when you click on the share button in YouTube, you can get a link from there. So that's all that is. So in the same way, if you wanted to add a video from somebody else's website, all you need is that link and you can potentially embed it on your site too. So I noticed you've got a few where you link out to someone else's website for some videos in sort of part of resources, which you could potentially embed if you wanted to, and if they gave you permission to, if you don't want people to leave your site. Something to think about. This whole banner. So basically these images sit inside the column. So that's not an image. There's nothing there to click on. It's just a space. You need a spacer in a column because without anything in the column won't display. It needs to have content in it. So then that image is actually inside the style box. So if you wanted to change that image, again, you click on that and you're taken to your media library and you can select upload or find something on Instant Images. That overlay. So if you decided to change this whole background to green, you would change the background in the section. That's blue at the moment. You change that to green. But then this is an overlay on top of this image. So this image doesn't have a crop on it. This is actually just the square image with an image overlay. And that's here under background overlay. And it's that blue one. But again, you'd go to the media library and choose the relevant overlay to change the color. There are a gazillion. Down here. Okie dokie. So that's pages. I think all pages are going to be pretty similar, and any of the widgets, you just click on that little pencil to be able to edit them. I think everything's pretty intuitive, but give me a shout if there's something you're confused about. But I think they should all be pretty fine. When you hit edit instead of edit with Elementor, you're taken to that WordPress page. One thing I just want to make clear is don't press this back to WordPress editor button. If you press that, it removes the Elementor page layout and we're kind of left with garbled rubbish. So the only way then to get it back would be to restore from the backup from the previous day. So obviously we can easily restore and we're not losing too much stuff. But you know, if you've sat there all day making a ton of changes and then you lose that, that'd drive you absolutely mental. So annoyingly, I can't remove that button, which drives everybody crazy. But just don't press it, is all I can say. Do not press that button. You shouldn't need to come into the edit section anyway at the moment. So now we'll go to